Welcome to today's issue of Jonard's Tools Podcast. My name is Wayne Bunce, Director of Sales. We have Ed Sorbona, Director of Engineering, and our special guest is Roman Babych from SOS. Welcome, Bob, and tell us all about yourself.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. So my name is Roman Babych. I'm with Sales Outsource Solutions. We are a Canadian manufacturer rep firm that covers from coast to coast, and we represent multiple areas of the fields: telecommunication, electrical, renewable energy, utilities, just to name a few. And I am in charge of our Fiber One division, which is focused on telecommunication, outside plant, wireline business.
Excellent.
Welcome.
Excellent.
Glad to have you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So today's topic, we're going to talk about fiber deployment in Canada versus fiber deployment in the U.S. and we're
Worldwide.
Worldwide. We're mainly based in it. We know more about the U.S. market than anyone, but we can talk about what's going on worldwide, but more specifically what's going on in Canada. But I was reading before the podcast, and one of the things that always amazes me about Canada is its size.
Of course.
And population.
Yes.
And I looked up today's population in Canada. It's 38.25 million people, which is roughly
the second largest land mass country in the world.
Exactly. That is right.
Yeah.
That is right.
So to put that in perspective, there's 39 million people in Canada or California. So
yes. We are smaller than California in population.
Yeah. So if you do the person per mile, and this is why everyone loves California, that's 250 people per square mile in California, where it's 10.2 people per mile in Canada. I'm sorry I didn't use the metric system or the meters, but
no, it's crazy to think about, and the return on investment, right? To invest into California as opposed to the population that we return, right? So it definitely puts into perspective.
Yeah. So one of the things that we talk about here in the U.S. is how much it actually costs to deploy fiber per mile or per household. And I actually talked to one of our experts, and I told him I was going to mention his name today in our podcast, Jerry Leslie. He was telling me that it typically costs around $1,600 per household to deploy fiber in the U.S. And the thing that we have going in the U.S. is population. So can you imagine what you guys are going through in Canada? You can touch on this. It's like how much it actually costs to install fiber in Canada per household or per mile. So he was telling me per mile, they range between $60,000 and $80,000 per mile to install fiber. So it's easier to justify the cost.
If every single person was getting fiber, and I can assure you, the outlying area, the northern countries, stuff like that, I highly doubt that that's being deployed there. They're probably using satellite technology and stuff like that. No, just because it's just economically doesn't make any sense.
Well, yeah, that's what really comes down to, right? Especially before this the COVID years, and that's what it was. It's everyone is looking at the return on investment, and it was really hard to justify when you have the population up north, but. Things are obviously changing. It's important that we make sure that everybody has access to internet, right? And Canada is one of those really, really hard countries to make sure that you are connecting, just because it's so expensive. To your point, obviously, northern communities, there's a lot fewer people per community, but it's still important that we run the wireline, and that's why it's so hard for us to do what we do. When you look at Ontario, where I live in the Greater Toronto area, our density is very high. It makes a total sense for all the major telecommunication companies to develop here, and that's partly why we have all these broadband funds today. Over the last 3 years, we've gone crazy to make sure that people are connected, and I think it's the important and the right thing to do.
That was kind of like my next question. Who's funding the fiber deployment in Canada?
So, the government has stepped up, quite a bit. It's been amazing to see the different broadband funds, the United Universal Broadband Fund. We have something called ASIP, which is here funding Ontario because of such a big population and the province being so big. We had a SWIFT fund that was connecting rural communities as well. So it's been divided and making sure that people are staying accountable. And obviously there are deadlines similar to what is going on in the United States to make sure that everyone is responsible in doing their part. But they continue to invest their own money, telecommunication companies. But right now it's been a huge help. Obviously that the government is assisting to make sure that everyone's connected. There are deadlines, we have a deadline here, I think, on this ASIP fund of 2025 to make sure that everybody has high-speed internet. And they're working really, really hard towards that. But as we look today to our calendars, I mean, we're pretty close to 2025. It may have looked like something further away when we started this during COVID, but we're approaching it fairly quickly. And our build seasons are fairly different than they are in a lot of the states, right? So
yeah, and we have the same. Honestly, we have the same issue here in the States. Maybe Wayne, you could talk about it a little bit more. Same kind of funding, different funding buckets for all the telecoms and the like to do this, and they're starting to run up along the same timeline, saying, "Oh my God, we're not going to do this."
So part of the problem we have here is once you get the funding and you have your supply issues, which have been resolved, but one of the biggest issues is permits. So we have a contractor in the South right now that they got paid millions of dollars to deploy fiber, and they haven't got their permits yet. So they can't even meet their deadlines because they can't get the permits to actually place the fiber, which is a whole nother issue here for us. But I don't know if you guys are having the same issue. But who is leading the charge as far as fiber deployment in Canada?
Yeah, I mean, it's important that everybody works together, and I think that we've been to quite a few conferences here, and then that's the main topic that's being talked about. Is there are so many things that are involved in making sure that a community is connected. And it's not just the telecommunication company that has to run their network. It's like you said, it's getting the permits. It's making sure that you also get permits. What we were talked about with a company that they have 100,000 poles that they have to put up, and in such a short timeline. So you can just imagine the amount of the workforce that is required for something like that. But permits have definitely been an issue. It's something that takes a long time. But the government is trying to make everyone work together and trying to speed through some of those things. Obviously, it has to happen the right way. You cannot skip any steps, but maybe making some of these steps a little bit more accessible and making them work together in a better fashion.
Another aspect to all this in terms of the deployment is, you mentioned it, you touched on it, the resources and manpower needed. And the problem with some of the manpower is they're not educated in fiber optics, and they have to go through a whole training session, and all this is slowing down some of that deployment. So it's just another of probably 10 other aspects we haven't even talked about here.
I think. Go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the permitting thing is just one aspect, like you said. I think the workforce part of it is something that we hear from a lot of our end users, that they're having a real tough time to making sure that they have the right amount of contractors lined up to do the work. And there's a lot of in-house work that's done, but there's just not enough people to do the work, and that's the issue that we run into.
Agree. We see that here as well, between just labor aspects and then the technical side. Now you gotta have splicers and guys like that. There's only so many of them to go around. So you gotta get guys, and you gotta get them trained and up to speed, and that takes time.
But I think this is a perfect time for a call out for our industry, right? For folks to become more aware, and we need to spend more time as a community to making sure that people are aware of what this industry can offer, because it's a great one. I mean, we talk to so many people that are now running telecommunication companies. We'll talk about smaller companies or are very influential at a larger company that have started from, being splicers. Like you say, they were trained at an earlier age, and they, come to know the industry and the ins and outs, and now they're obviously helping continue building networks. But I think that's where it needs to start. We need to make sure that we're helping people get educated about what this industry can offer, and we can attract really, really good talent now, and we need to continue, because this is for the long run, right? This is not just going to happen over the next 3 or 4 years. We're going to continue advancing. We don't know where connectivity takes us.
Exactly, and this isn't just the U.S. and Canadian problem. It's a European problem where you have
South America problem.
Three countries in particular in Europe, the Netherlands, Belgium, and Germany, who are really full force trying to deploy fiber. And they'll have a guy, one day was a baker, next day he's a fiber technician. And
absolutely.
And the call for us is that, hey guys, your tools, you got to make them, for lack of a better term, monkey proof. Okay, it's got to be that these guys are working on this cable, and that's all they're going to be working on. No adjustments, no nothing. That tool's got to be able to open, close, do whatever it is. In our case, probably prepping a fiber, to typically slitting open a jacket to get to the buffer tube, something like that. Okay, got to be where the guy just knows, grab the blue tool and go. That's it. They're really trying to make it as simple as possible. And honestly, we're hearing more and more of that here in the U.S. for exactly the same issue.
So
absolutely.
So listen, we skipped over something I want to go back to, because I'm fascinated by this topic, is fiber deployment. So is it aerial? Is it buried? Are they blowing fiber? Are they pulling fiber? Like, how's it actually being sold? Because you guys have a different temperature that you're dealing with than we do here in the States. So I don't know if there's permafrost still up their way in the north part of Canada. So like, what are you guys doing? Like, what are you seeing?
Yeah, I think a little bit of everything. We still have aerial construction happening today, and a lot of, like, in our Quebec region, out east, you would find a lot of aerial construction. There's just a lot of rock in that area. I would say underground construction is the most popular right now, and kind of the focus of where everyone is making sure that they're headed to. We're seeing more and more. What we call, one of our companies that we represent, Future Path, it's multi-duct, and the multi-duct's getting smaller and smaller, because obviously today our air-blown fiber is getting smaller and smaller. There's hybrid constructions where you can have 25 ducts, and then the middle of the duct is where the trunk cable is, the thicker and larger cable, and then you break out to communities or cul-de-sacs or what have you. And that's kind of how everyone is future-proofing, I think, their networks and the build of the networks, because it's the hardest to do initially, right? Like you said, with the permitting process and how much it costs to get into the ground, you're better off doing it and future-proofing yourself from the get-go. And that's kind of the way things are happening. So to your point, the fiber is being blown, for sure. That's becoming more and more popular here in Canada.
So they're overbuilding their plants.
That is happening, yes, but also the way that they're building some of the newer networks and the longer runs when it comes to in between smaller towns. They're putting in. We're having more and more end users putting in a lot more than you would think they need to in terms of the ducts, for example, just exactly for that reason. Because we, like I said before, we don't know where this is going to take us, and I think the way things are advancing today, it's just at such a quicker pace than we would have ever expected. So where we could be 10 years from now, and the demand for connectivity and the speeds could be way beyond what we would have ever expected. And so that's why I think companies are making sure that they're doing the right thing.
I agree totally. Yeah, 100%. And it only makes sense that if you're digging a trench, okay, you're going to make sure that you have future viability from the duct laid out into that trench, because otherwise you just capped yourself. And like you said, where is this going in the next 10 years? Who knows? Is fiber going to be a long-term winner? What about wireless technology speeds increasing? Where is that? Where do we see the future with that? I mean, to me, it's always going to be a combination of the two, but it's going to be this battle.
For sure.
And you got to be able to respond.
I don't think we're ever going to catch up, to be honest, guys. So
yeah, there's always something. There's always something advancing, right? There's always something new.
Exactly,
and it's amazing. It's amazing to think back. I think it's important that we do that from time to time, to think back where we were 10 years ago, and the things that we're seeing today in Internet of Technology. And it's crazy what we're able to do on a daily basis, and what people have access to. So it is amazing.
So I'm curious if you guys are seeing the same thing in Canada as we do here nationwide or worldwide, is the demand for bandwidth and the reasons, because before we all had coax and we were watching our TV, and now everyone's watching TV from some mobile device, their telephone. A lot of people aren't even paying for channels anymore. I was just talking to some of the people in my family, and I'm probably the only person left that actually pays a cable bill. But I was really,
you're old.
I know, probably, are like simple. But I was just talking with a group of friends of mine, and I'm amazed on how many people actually game my age. I'm still 35, even though I look 50. But people are still gaming.
Of course, yeah.
And that is a huge demand for higher speeds in the whole gaming industry, which is a huge industry. And Ed can talk about this better than I can, because he knows people that game more than I do. But that is one of the things we're seeing is faster speeds mean better gaming, and it's a huge community. And I'm just amazed. Like I said, I'm not into gaming, but yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, gaming is just one of the aspects. If you think today, with some of the way that the homes are being built, or the demands of a current family, that how many devices are connected at a house. I mean, I feel like a lot of the electronic devices, there's more electronic devices that are connected to your Wi-Fi than there isn't, right? I mean, coming from obviously the computer, but your gaming console, to your TV, to a robot that vacuums your house, right? To a sprinkler system. It's crazy what we've come to.
And I got garage door openers. I got my refrigerator. A coffee pot is hooked up.
Yeah. Everything can be accessed from your phone. It's pretty neat. Obviously, what we've been able to get to. With people a lot smarter than myself that were able to invent these things, but it's really, really neat to see.
So do you know, are they doing GPON, XGS-PON? Like what type of speeds are they deploying?
Yeah, I mean, GPON would still, I would say, be the most prevalent, but XGS-PON is definitely being talked about and actually being deployed by some companies. I think it kind of started out more for like a business aspect, and it will continue to advance, and it will be a more and more popular solution.
Yeah, that's the norm now here in the U.S. is everyone's moving to XGS-PON. It seems like it's more and more, and the testing it is a whole other issue we have. But yeah, that's definitely the norm. So realistically, do you think that we are going to reach like as far as the government and the fiber deployment? And I'm guessing it's Bell and Rogers and TELUS in Canada. Is there any other companies that are doing fiber deployment? I'm not familiar with all of them, but do you think
there's a lot. There is a lot. There's a lot of players in the game. A lot of people that are taking this extremely seriously, to making sure that our Canadians are connected, and that's what has to be done. And like I said before, the government has done a good job, and there's obviously things that we can improve on. And to your point about it being realistic. The deadlines are, they're strict, obviously, and we want to get there as quickly as possible. Will we be able to get there? It remains to be seen. I think, as weeks go by, they're finding different ways to do things better than they did a year ago, and so maybe but it's hard to say or hard to believe that it may be realistic. For example, the 2025 timeline that I mentioned, there's still so much to be done, and I wonder how we're going to adjust, right? But we have to adjust with our current situation, and I think the workforce is one of the main things. Prior to this, for 2 years, it was getting product was the issue, right? And raw material shortages and what have you. We've kind of come past that. But needless to say, it's a fund that's happening in the United States, which like we talked about is 10 multiple the population, and what you will be deploying there, that will affect Canada when it comes to receiving product in the next year or so. When that government money is being handed out, it obviously will fill up a lot of the manufacturing plants, and that will affect Canada in one way or another. So I don't know that we'll see what we experienced 2 years ago, but I think we need to prepare ourselves and we need to make sure that we're planning properly. And when I say that, it's everyone, our end users that are deploying the networks, the government, and also the contracting community. It's important that we continue growing this base that we have in the telecommunications sector. So I certainly hope, I guess that's my answer. I hope that what we've set out, we can get there, but I do see a lot of hurdles in the way.
Yeah, and if you think about it, with the headaches from COVID 2020, 2021, and didn't really get resolved till partway through 2022, you're already behind the 8 ball. And
for sure.
That's labor, that's product, that's the equipment necessary to deploy all this. You're already behind it. So I look at it, and like I said, in the U.S., we have the somewhat same target, and at this point, I view them as aspirational instead of being firm, because I don't believe we can get there. Just because there was too much, it was too slow in the beginning to get up to speed. Had things been more normal, had we basically went from, 0, where we all stopped, sat home for 3 months or whatever, and then we're able to go back to 100, everybody working, everything is normal again, production basically wasn't affected, or we're able to bring everything right back up in weeks instead of a year and a half, then yeah, the possibility exists. I don't see it now. No way. We started getting full speed running way too late.
I think we just need to, like we did, I think there's a positive out of this. If we look back at what we dealt with through COVID, that we were able to adapt fairly quickly to a newer future, I guess,
yep.
or what we needed to deal with for the years that lasted. And so in the same fashion, I think we've taught ourselves that we can do this. And so in the same way that these deadlines are set out, and I think it's in order to push the companies that are responsible for this, but we will have to adapt, and there may be newer rules that we have to put in, or have, just like, it has to be a collective effort, right, between everyone to get to the end goal.
Agree. Totally agree.
I am a little bit more optimistic than most. I'm excited to see what the future holds as far as speeds, because I know that we're going to start getting, more people will start getting faster speeds, and
for sure
we'll have better video content. When we started doing our podcast at the beginning, my internet was so bad that it was breaking up all the time, and we don't have those issues anymore. So like I said, I'm excited to see what's going to happen in the future. So
yeah, no, and that's exactly what what we're all here for in our industry. It's to make sure that everybody has the access, or the choice, the freedom of choice, to be able to get access to what a lot of us have, or some of us have taken almost for granted in some of the centers for quite some time. So I am excited for our country in the United States to get to that point that people have access to educate themselves on things maybe that they haven't had a chance to before because of the poor internet access.
Yep.
So, well, to wrap this up, if anybody ever needs anything from Jonard, Ed and I, you can reach us you go to our website and connect for us. Roman, if you'd like to share your email address for any listeners up in Canada. Ed's like shaking his head like, no, don't give us information.
No. That's okay. That's okay. You're not centered again.
We're not going to give everyone Ed's email. Oh my gosh. See, now you got to edit that out too. I can't stay centered, guys. I'm attention deficit. You're lucky I'm still sitting for this long. So listen, if anyone ever wants to get in contact with you and your company and what you guys can offer, go ahead, give everyone your email address, your contact information. I'm sure our 3 listeners in Canada might contact you. So.
Yeah, hopefully there's more. But the best way to contact us is salesoutsourcesolutions.com. We, like I said, we are a rep for our manufacturing community here in North America. We represent some of the best companies, Jonard being one of them. So
thank you.
Any way that we can help, we're always here. Thank you.
So speaking of that, go ahead, tell her what all do you represent? I know you do test equipment, cable, go ahead.
So we represent in the telecommunications sector, for example, we represent basically an end-to-end solution. So Jonard being one of our our main tool company, and connectivity when it comes to conduit, vaults, anything you can think of when you're connecting a network when it comes to aerial deployment, and there's a good chance we represent a company that manufactures something in that space.
Right.
And the same thing goes for the electrical, the commercial industrial side as well. So those are, other sectors of our company for Sales Outsource Solutions. And like I said, my main focus is our telecommunications space, which, Jonard is a part of our portfolio.
Right.
Well, we really appreciate your time, and we look forward to talking to you in the future.
Thank you for having me, guys. This was really good.
Ed, would you like to wrap us up?
Oh, sure. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and thank you again, Roman, for joining us today. Let's call it a wrap.